Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
We are recording live from Miami. Actually, our guest is not in Miami, but you and I are in Miami.
But our listener won't be live when they listen to it. I mean, we're always recording live, but we're recording.
Excellent point.
Thank you.
All right. Well, anyway, happy to be here with you. Excited to have this guest who's a longtime friend of ours in the firm.
Yes.
So my question to you today is, when are you at your best?
Other than sitting here next to you recording a podcast?
So the podcast is, so when you're recording a podcast, this is the best, this is the top of the Brett Amron. When do we see the best Brett Amron? Maybe I've never seen
Is this I don't know. Is this a time of day thing that you're looking for?
Your pick.
Or like,
I was thinking time of day, but it could be.
I'd say morning is probably my sharpest.
Is it before the run, after the run?
Probably in that sort of area, right? Not before the run, because I'm still a little groggy, getting up, feeling it. The run or exercise, whatever I'm doing that day. I'd say probably after that is when I probably feel
after the run.
Yeah, I get those endorphins going and I'm up, I'm awake, I feel good. As long as I rehydrate and get whatever nutrition I need. Yeah, I'd probably say that's probably the best time. My head's clear.
Right.
I'm feeling good. What about you, Jeffrey?
I'm similar, but I used to be a night guy and I always worked out in the evenings. I worked out, we talked about this on another podcast, but I worked out at lunch for many years, but then I transitioned to evenings and I always consider myself a night owl. I would work well at night. I work late at night if I needed to.
And then age.
And then you have kids and you learn to capture the mornings, you know? And then I shifted to being a morning workout person. Part of the reason I'd like to work out with the kids around so they'd see it and, learn from, our practice. But I've definitely become a morning guy. But after a swim, like on the ideal day, I get to swim and then go to the spa at the building where one of our swimmers lives and do a cold plunge, a little steam.
Yep.
When, if I have the swim, cold plunge, steam, sauna, I walk out of there, I'm still chilled from the cold plunge. I finish there and I just feel good. I'm like in the zone.
I did the run and the cold plunge this morning.
Yeah, there you go.
It was great. So I'm feeling really sharp right now. Well, but it's going to go downhill very soon.
Oh, I don't think so.
Very shortly.
With this guest, he's going to bring. You better bring your A game.
Let's get this podcast going because I feel it's going to go downhill.
Our guest today is Donald Kirk. Donald is a Tampa-based attorney specializing in insolvency and financial restructuring, fiduciary duty litigation, and commercial litigation. He is the national chair of Carlton Fields' bankruptcy and business litigation departments. He's the chair of 2 departments, not 1, 2.
That's how good he is.
His recent focus includes the healthcare insolvency industry, where he advises institutional buyers of hospitals and skilled care facilities. He's represented stalking horse buyers, physician groups, and contract disputes, and he's defended officers and directors of healthcare organizations. In fact, he often defends executives in fiduciary litigation. I think sometimes
he does.
On the opposite side of that.
He does.
He also helps clients with government investigations. His practice spans numerous states, federal courts, and decades across the U.S. He is recognized for his expertise in leading complex, high-stakes negotiations. He's board certified in business bankruptcy. He's a fellow of the American College of Bankruptcy. He's held leadership roles with the Florida Bar, the American Bar Association, and he's also a former president of the Tampa Bay Bankruptcy Bar Association. I don't know why I really ended on that one, but he's also just a good guy and a great father. So, Donald Kirk, we're happy to have you. Welcome.
Thanks, guys. How are you guys doing? Happy to be here. Interested in what we're going to talk about.
Oh, are you? So are we. When is Donald Kirk at his best? What's your answer to that question?
So, I was listening to what you guys said. I'm definitely not at my best after a cold plunge. My wife has tried to get me to do that many times, and I've done it, and I've kind of liked it, but it's definitely not at my best. I think I'm at my best on Saturday or Sunday afternoon after I've worked out in the morning. Then I've gotten some stuff done around the house. Then I'm doing other stuff. I'm just sort of active during the day, and then it's like 3:30, and I'm sort of done. And it's time to just shut it down. And I'm either just hanging out at the pool at the house or laying on the couch and just watching football or something. That is, I believe, my best time in life right now.
So let me get this clear. You're saying that you're at your best when you're in the pool or on the couch? Is that what
that's when I'm at my
I didn't
peak,
ask. The question was not when are you happiest.
Right. And Donald, being a fellow Gator, we've had some tough times, but I would imagine that you're even better when you're laying on that couch watching the Gators winning a football game.
Yes.
Yeah, even better. I am not at my best now when I'm in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. I've been there a couple of times. I am at my worst at that moment. It's just pretty brutal right now.
I think that is fair. Obviously we've known Donald for a very long time. I would say that there are a few lawyers that we deal with that typically are adverse to us in cases that we like. There are,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Donald is one of those. Donald is somebody who I madly respect and like to see on the other side. Yeah. Not because I feel like, oh, this is going to be easy. It's because it's not going to be easy. Mm-hmm. I know he knows what he's doing. I know he's going to represent his clients really, really well and zealously advocate for them. But I also know that Donald is somebody you can talk to.
Right.
And
you're
you
going to
can
communicate clearly and honestly. Right.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about that.
I think our favorite cases are the ones with good lawyers on the other side.
100%.
A good lawyer on the other side and one who will communicate with you is just the best friend case for all the parties.
I had a case, and first of all, thank you for that. And the feeling is mutual. I actually was thinking about you two probably about 2 weeks ago. I have a case, and the lawyer on the other side and the clients on the other side, if you were to look at their bios, you would think that they were like really top notch and all this type of stuff. And the amount at issue, you would think they're top notch. But we're headed toward a mediation, and I just didn't think that they either got it or could communicate effectively to each other what the issue was.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, I really wish I had a very good lawyer on the other side. And I actually thought about our mediations. I really wish I had a very good, very sharp, sort of business-minded, practical lawyer on the other side, so we can figure out if there's a solution. Maybe we can't, right? But maybe we can't. But at least I know it's going to be a fair fight. And because it's a fair fight, the other side will sort of understand things, and it more likely than not leads to a better conclusion. So I agree with you. I much prefer to have a very strong adversary. Yeah. It just makes things, I think, more interesting, but it also makes the likelihood of a settlement better,
Right. In most cases, you should be able to agree on what the set of facts are. Sometimes there's some factual disputes about, intent or something else, but even then, you should be able to agree on what you disagree on in most cases. And then from there, frame the discussion about, okay, how does this result? How does this get resolved? But ultimately, it boils down to communication.
Well, yeah. And if you have lawyers that are communicating, it's not our job to necessarily make the other lawyer's life miserable, right? The idea is to communicate to represent our client. So if you're communicating and not having to worry about what the lawyer on the other side is going to do or not do, then you can focus on the issues. And if you can come to a settlement, fantastic. If you cannot, okay, that's okay too, but you can focus on the issues, right? You don't have to worry that, oh, this lawyer is going to pull something and maybe there's a document that hasn't been produced, or maybe there's an issue that they, are hiding behind. You know that the lawyer, if the lawyer tells you these are the documents, then you know those are the documents. These are the arguments, then you know those are the arguments. And you present it to the judge and let the judge decide. Again, not everything can settle, but at least the parties can focus on the issues and try to get somewhere to a solution, to a resolution, or a ruling, at some point. So I obviously much prefer that, especially, at this stage of our career. I was probably one of those early on that just wanted to fight and fight and fight when I was a younger lawyer. That's all I wanted to do, but learned over the years that that's not always the best thing for the client.
Rarely in the best interest of the client.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. No, it's funny. The older I get, I don't lose any sleep about whether it's going to be a fight or if it's going to settle, right? It's just, what you hope is like, you'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And you have somebody on the other side that understands what the circumstances are, the legal side, the practical side, the client pressures, whatever all those things are. You try to get it resolved. You understand the issues, to your point. You understand the facts. And sometimes parties just don't disagree. And, as long as you have the clarity to kind of go in the other direction, that's fine also. And that's almost as pure as the settlement, right? Okay, now we know we can't get it done this way. maybe we need more time to let this process mature so people understand pain more. And maybe you can get back together, or maybe you just don't. And if you don't, that's fine also. And then you can focus on that. So I don't know. The longer I practice, the more I kind of see things in a clearer light, and I don't get too worried about little things.
It's good. You're able to zoom out. All right. So let's zoom out and start back from the beginning. Where were you born? No, not that beginning. No. Are you one of those people who always knew you wanted to be a lawyer? How'd you become a lawyer? How'd you get here?
So I was at UF and I was a senior and living with a couple of my fraternity brothers, and I was going to be dentist, and then I was going to be a business major. When I was a senior in Fenster, I was like, hey man, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I graduate. And he says, he's my best friend, he's in LA now. He says, well, I'm going to go to law school. I'll get a law degree and I'll figure it out later. So I just said, that sounds like a good idea.
You kicked the can down the road.
So I applied to take the LSAT, didn't take any of those bar courses, took the LSAT a couple months later, got into UF. Then while I was at UF, still didn't know what I wanted to do. At that point, I wanted to be an environmental lawyer because I didn't realize that you could be an environmental lawyer and not make money. Those are kind of two things. And so then I did a summer associate my first summer at a firm in Sarasota, a big firm down there. And I got my first paycheck. And all of a sudden I was like, I think I could get used to this. And literally, I don't know when I became a lawyer. It just sort of happened. So I know that's not the story that
that's
everyone kind of wants to hear, but that is the fact. It's a 5-minute decision.
I think it's a common story. Yeah. I mean, I literally had no intention of applying to law school and only took the LSAT because all my buddies were doing it. I was like, oh, everyone's taking the LSAT. Maybe I should just do that too. And then the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, I was a finance major at UF. My sister had gone to law school. I thought I was going to go, and then I took an American history, like a smaller American history class that was mostly writing. And I was the only business, or I should say non-poli-sci major in the class. And I remember I wrote a paper and I got it back, and the professor asked me, are you going to law school? And I said, I'm thinking about it. And he said, oh, you should.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Were you thinking about it before that? Or were you thinking about it only because he said?
No, I was thinking about going to law school, and I just said, oh, okay. And then I just kind of moved on. I just went forward with the process. Kind of like you, I mean, a little bit different, but the same. Like I just kind of migrated towards that. There was no, I didn't always want to be a lawyer. My father said to me and my sister, be a professional. That's all he said. Like, just so you can hang your shingle one day. You don't always have to work for somebody. That was his sort of advice to me. But
it's interesting. My dad, so I called my dad up. I told him, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to apply to law school. And by then I was a senior, and he'd sort of suffered through me just meandering through college. I didn't do poorly, but I didn't do great either. I was in a fraternity at UF. You know how that goes. And so I told him, hey, I think I'm going to go to law school, or try to go to law school. And he said, I always knew that that's where you would end up.
Wow.
Really?
That's what you were going to be. And I said, well, why didn't you ever say it? I was like, well, I just wanted you to figure it out yourself and just find that way. And I always thought that was good. And so that's how I've sort of kind of parented my sons, for good or bad. I've just sort of let them figure it out. Because as you two probably know, and most of the listeners know that have children, they're going to be who they're going to be.
Yeah.
Well, that was great. Your dad sounds like a great, that sounds fantastic. Did you ever ask him why he thought that you would be a lawyer, or why he had that view?
I didn't, Brett. Just
right.
I don't know why.
No, as a kid, you wouldn't. Right.
You remember what it was like when we were in college talking to your parents? It was like you talked to them once a week on the phone.
Yep.
You wanted to get off the phone as quick as you can. The phone is like it wasn't a cordless phone or anything like that. And so I didn't ask him. I probably was a little startled by it and didn't give it much thought. I wasn't as sort of pensive as I am today, Or
insightful, right? I mean, a 50-plus-year-old doesn't think the same way as a 21-year-old. I wouldn't have asked that question either. I was just curious if you ever had that conversation. That's interesting that he felt that way.
I remember when my daughter told me that she was thinking about law school, she was a little reluctant to tell me. She was afraid to tell me. She's like, I was like, why? And she goes, well, I know you don't want us to go to law school. I was like, what do you mean? I don't want you to go to law school for the reason that I went to law school, which is no reason. I just went to law school because it was kind of the thing, I didn't know what else to do. So if you want to go to law school, you should go to law school, but don't go to law school because you don't know what else to do, which is not a great reason. But anyway, but now I'm starting to think, here you have sort of three of us that all have somewhat similar paths to law school. And, maybe that's the better path, is like if you don't really know and you kind of fall into it and it works,
I look at kids today and it just feels like their careers start so early, right?
Yeah.
Middle school, high school, whatever. There's some career path that they feel like they have to be on. And it actually makes me kind of sad. I try to dial that back as much as I can with my youngest now and just be like, just do whatever, enjoy life.
Yeah.
And save your energy till you need it. You don't have to be so locked into everything. But maybe that was just our generation, because now it's just not like that, and I think that's a little unfortunate. So I agree. I try to preserve that as much for them as I can.
Well, first of all, I think this generation, they know so much more than we did. They have greater access to information. They just are way smarter and more worldly than we ever were at that age, for sure. But there is this sort of like pressure and expectation to know what you want, and so when a kid doesn't know what they want, to me, I'm like, that's normal,
Well, when you apply to college now, right, you have to tell them what you want your major to be. When you apply to college.
What school
within a college or within a university, and you're applying directly to that. Like, there's no way I would have known that when I was a senior, junior in high school. Like, no way.
And I don't think that these kids know, right? I don't think they know. I think they just have to provide an answer. That's the expectation, and that's what they do.
Well, some do, and this is actually what hi, Hannah. I was just going to use her as an example. Some kids that they know what they want to do, but they know that they've known that since they were 10 years old. And so to me, what happens is, and this is, I think what happened to Hannah, is that she, like when she was 8, 9, 10, whatever, she was like, she wanted to be a neurosurgeon. Like, this is her thing, neurosurgeon. She loved medicine and science and did summer programs at colleges when she was in high school. And then one day decided, I want to go to law school. I just talked about that a minute ago. But I think what happens is 18-year-old Hannah didn't necessarily jive with what 10-year-old Hannah wanted to do. And I think that's what happens with a lot of the kids who make a decision early, that they made a decision based on the information that was available at that time. And we change,
right?
Yeah,
we change.
So.
I mean, we change now, right? Who I am now is not who I was 10 years ago. Who I was 5 years ago it's not me anymore. So we changed.
So the question I have for you is, what advice would you give to 18-year-old Donald today if you could go back in a time machine?
So keep it clean.
What kind of advice? There's a lot of advice.
Besides investment advice, because that's too
No. I would say like a lot of things go back to your mentors, right? And my mentors were, I had a couple of mentors when I was in my first law firm, and, my parents were my mentors. I think you need to find mentors. You need to have people that give you access and opportunity and sort of guidance and support. Because if you don't have that, it's a lot harder, right? And so I don't know what kind of advice that is, other than, just seek out those mentors. Make sure you reciprocate the love to those mentors that they provide to you. Yeah. Because, being at my age now, I look to mentor people, and I invest in people. I invest my own body and soul into people, my experiences into people. I'm not looking for any appreciation back or anything like that, but I think that it's nice to know that the effort is getting a return of some type, that they're learning, that they're trying, things like that. And I think so. My first advice would be that is to like seek out those mentors and really learn from mentors, because without them, it's about 100 times more difficult. The second thing I would say is, and I didn't learn this until much later, my dad was always a leader, right? He was a colonel in the Army. He was the head of his bank and all this kind of stuff. And he used to always tell me, leadership is just about doing something, raising your hand, just volunteering. That's what leadership is. I was not by any means a leader until, at some point early on in my legal career, when I actually just started doing things. I don't know why, but I did start raising my hand. And whether you have the mettle to be a leader or not, you just sort of are if you raise your hand. And I wish I had learned that lesson earlier, guys. I wish I had learned that lesson earlier and been a more accomplished high school person. Or college person, because I was just having a good time, doing whatever I needed to do to get by. But I wish I had been more serious and raised my hand a little bit more at that age.
Well, so I'm going to, just to push back on that for a minute, I mean, it framed who you are and what you are today. And so that was your experience back then, right? And even your advice to your youngest is don't worry about it. Like just, you know, enjoy, right? So, and that's sort of the natural thing too. Like I always think about that. Like, well, what if I focused a little more? And what if I decided that I wanted to, rather than stay at UF for 4 years, if I went studied abroad or I, you know, all of our experiences to date have gotten us to where we are. And I would say that regardless of whether you were super focused in high school or college, man, it really hasn't impacted. It worked out pretty well for you. You're doing pretty darn well. So,
exactly.
You know, I get it. I mean, I think about that all the time. I think about my kids and, you know, I try to balance that focus with enjoyment as much as possible and guide them, but let them ultimately choose their path, right? I think we're all sort of in alignment with that. Just the one thing that and this goes to dealing with younger lawyers as well, is like the hard work, right? Because there's always, you know, technology and there's always these life hacks and things like that. And, you know, my saying around here and even at home is like, there's no hack for hard work. Like you have to put in the time to hone your craft, whatever that craft is, right? Whether it's being a lawyer, whether it's being a journalist, whether, you know, whatever it is, you have to put in the time because you're just never going to get there if you don't put in that time.
You can't. And, you know, I would say that you asked for what advice I give. I tell, and this is sort of a recruiting, like what we try to recruit. And then also what I tell the boys, I always say, boys, if you don't have a chip on your shoulder, which I do, and I think you two probably do somewhere. I know you do, Brett. You know, if you don't have a chip on your shoulder that drives you to work harder and out hustle everybody, you're not going to beat everybody. And so I tell the boys all the time, if you don't have a chip on you better manufacture one. You better create one. And so, you know, what I usually look for when I'm recruiting somebody is just sort of ambition, right? Because that solves all of the issues that you're talking about. Just this sort of unbridled ambition to sort of be better than their parents or all of their peers because they're driven by something. I usually think it's a chip on their shoulder because I think if you can find that ambition, Brett, I remain super optimistic about associates today. We've got a crew of them here that are all hardworking. Yep. They want it. They try hard. You know, they work long hours. Maybe not as long as us, but you know, there's only a few of us, right? The ones that work those hours just sort of rise to where we are. That's just fact. Not everyone can do that. But generally speaking, they're all pretty ambitious. So I think that's the advice that I would give to somebody. You better be ambitious and you better work hard, just like your point.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't think about the chip on the shoulder, but I think that's right.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, it doesn't have to be as to a specific person. It can be something that happened. It can be an internal chip based on something, right? It just with the ambition to, I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. Or I'm going to, you know what I mean? So I love that. I think that's...
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's got to be some insecurity and some fear deep down somewhere in you.
Of course.
That drives you, covered up by everything else, but it's got to be there.
And hopefully it's internal. Like I'm not sure the chip on the shoulder piece, but that's
internal.
Not right. Yeah. But not because you want to be better than someone else, but because you want to be the best version of you, you know, or...
You got to prove to somebody something, right?
But hopefully it's
whoever that person is.
Right.
Well, it starts with you.
Yeah. It's you, and it's a certain sense of, I don't know, pride is probably not the right word, but a certain sense of duty or ambition or whatever it is. Or, you know, we always call it the care factor, you know, that you care. You just have to care. You know, when you're doing a job, do you really care about the client, the outcome, the whatever it is, you know, that you're working on? If it's a brief, do you care? I care genuinely about whoever's going to read this. I want them to go, damn, that's good. That makes sense. That's, you know, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah.
You know, the judge, the opposing counsel, the client, I care, you know, like I want it to be good. I want it to be the best damn thing. And that's the hardest thing as a lawyer. You can always make it better. It's like at some point you have to say, okay, this is good enough, you know?
Right.
So
100%.
We're talking about leadership and you were late to the party about becoming a leader, but now you're the chair of 2 departments at a national law firm. What is that like for young lawyers or lawyers who don't know, haven't practiced a big law or don't know, what does the chair of a department or two departments do?
So I can say that I'll give you the things that you would see on a piece of paper, and then I'll give you sort of what we really do, at least from my perspective. I think, look, I hire and fire. Right. At my point now, I don't get into hiring of associates unless it's very important, or the termination of associates. But I get into that when it's with respect to shareholders. I keep track of who's busy and who's not, which kind of dovetails into the first point, right? I try to convey information from senior management and interpret it in a way that is digestible to whoever the audience is that I'm speaking to. And so, those are I approve marketing budgets, I approve file openings, I do all that type of stuff. I think, so there's all that. And that becomes pretty easy, right? Yeah. It becomes secondhand.
It still takes time.
That's the easy part. What I also have to do, though, is I was recruiting a group of people yesterday, and I was talking with them, and I told them what I think my role is. I think my role is, look, if you're not performing, my role is pretty easy. I know what I'm supposed to do. You know what's coming. That's the easy part. But I think my more important role is if you're doing well, or you're on the trajectory of doing well, I'm not going to tell you how to do well. I'm just going to give you the resources and the clout to help you do well. If you need something, you come to me. I'm going to get it for you.
Nice.
If you run into resistance, you reach out to me. I'll provide you with my wisdom, my thoughts, my guidance on how the doors are opening around here and how to access whatever you need to. But my highest and best use is to enable future stars to become super duper stars. That's what I enjoy. I try to encourage people. And then I think there's a soft stuff. People come to you and they want you to solve their problems. I think most people around here by now know I'm not here to solve little problems. I'm not solving any staff issues, but I will solve bigger problems. And I'll protect people that need to be protected. And I think that the part of the job that I like the most is that you can really make differences in people's lives that really deserve it.
Sounds like the definition of a leader.
I'm ready to come work at Carlton Fields. I'm curious. Exactly. It sounds like the definition of a leader. Yeah, that was a good, well thought out answer. What my follow-up question is, you've been with Carlton Fields for how long?
I guess, I don't know. Maybe
you don't know.
14 years now, 13 years.
So, and the firm is how many attorneys today versus then? We're just curious what changes.
Maybe it started at 300, maybe around 400 now.
Nice. Okay. So all attributable to Donald Kirk.
100%.
Impressive.
Hardly.
Impressive.
Hardly.
Yeah. Donald, this was great. I definitely have more questions because I feel like we could learn from you.
I mean, the leadership.
Yeah, I feel like we scratched the surface on
We did, but the leadership really comes through, and I see why you've been so successful.
Yeah.
And I think our listener will, and why you've risen to the level you have. And so kudos to you, man.
And the firm's lucky to have you as a chair.
Well, those are very nice things to say. I think I've been fortunate, just like you two have, and we're lucky to be where we are and lucky to be able to do what we do. And, hopefully we'll keep doing it for a little while longer.
100%.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for the time, Donald. We appreciate it.
If you like this episode, please leave us a positive review. Positive reviews help others find the show. And if you really like the show, subscribe and send a link to the show to one of your friends or family and tell them, hey, you should check this out, because I think they will like it. And we'll see you next time on The Practice.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Nelson. And thank you, Don.
Donald, thank you so much. Brett.
All right, that's it.
As always.
All right.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.